Hey Global Leader, welcome to Joyride with Expatriates. In this show, we bring every month a different person to talk about their expatriation experiences, how to manage cultural differences, and how to become an effective person while living abroad. Hi, I'm Tatyana Fittipaldi. If you are new here, in this channel, we make videos to help global leaders just like you become more productive, more effective, and improve their leadership both in business and in life. Today, we have the pleasure to talk with Olga Conto. Olga was born in Colombia and left her country in 1995. She lived in the US, UK, Spain, France, Panama, and Switzerland. She is an architect and she runs her own practice. She is married and currently lives in France. Please join me in welcoming Olga to our show. Hey Olga, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you, Tati, for inviting me. Very happy to be here.
I am super excited too. And to start our show with the right foot, I wanted to show you my purple lady for you.
Yay! I love it.
This is not a good drawing as yours are, and we're going to show your drawings later to our audience. But I wanted to welcome you with a drawing too to start our creative process.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
So Olga, let's start by talking about your expatriation. So you were born in Colombia. You had many expatriation experiences. You've been in you lived in many places. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us what you missed in those places and what did you not miss in those places.
As you're saying, Tati, I do have a little bit of an experience. What is interesting is that it has been through different stages of my life. So I left my native country when I was 16 with my family. So my first experience as an expat, let's say, was in a family experience. We moved to the United States, and it was interesting. It was so many things were new. It was not the first time I was in that country, but I have never lived abroad. And for example, I went into a school that was co-ed. So there were boys and girls. And I was coming from a school that was only girls.
Only girls.
Back home. So to begin with, that was like, wow.
That was a change.
Yeah, a big change. But I think it was actually a very positive change. It is like getting used to seeing boys all every day. It's normal. So it was very nice. But it was hard. It was hard because my level of English was basic. And it was actually the one assignment, I was always the worst, back at home. So it was kind of an irony, that I was moving to a country where I will have to speak English all the time. But again, I also think it's the one thing, that when you move away, if you want to learn the language, you have to be immersed. In the language, if you take it easy, and just stay within your language, or do not connect, let's say with the locals, somehow, I know it's hard, but somehow you will miss the opportunity, and same thing was with my brother. With him, it was even harder because he was coming from a school where he was learning German. Oh. So actually he had no idea what to say, and actually after 2 years he spoke better English than I did. Obviously he was a little bit younger, but so again, it can be done. It's just that it takes a lot of effort.
It's challenging, but it can be done. Yeah,
definitely. So that was the first experience. Then I continue as an international student in a university. So new thing, back in Latin America, usually young adults, let's say, stay at home and go during the day to the university. In my case, I was living in a dorm, so it was like, wow, this is new.
That's different.
So obviously it was a leap of faith, you know, from my parents, like, oh my God, you're so young, but okay, we're gonna let you go, you know, and you start doing your life. And it was good. It was good. You learn to be responsible. You learn to do your laundry, you know, all these things that it's not that you never helped at home, but now it's up to you. Unless you do it, nobody's gonna do
nobody
it.
else will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so again, that was very interesting. And then I also had this opportunity of doing an exchange, you know, and I went to France for a few months. And then it was amazing because it was the first time I lived in France, and I had this bohemian life, you know, going into art school and all of that. It was incredible. I did learn. I did take French classes at the time. So actually, my schedule was very busy. I didn't have as much time, you know, to party and all of this. But I think it was one of the best semesters I ever had, you know, because I was absorbing everything. I was going into museums, and I don't know. It was just so good, so good.
Very intellectually active, it sounds. Yeah.
Completely. Unfortunately, in that sense, that time in Paris was I did not have that many contact with French people, because in that sense, you know, I had most of my friends were international students like me doing study abroad. So in that sense, for example, I didn't make any. I had one
Was
Spanish
not as
friend.
immersive as you're going to tell us later about
Exactly, exactly.
your next French experience.
Exactly. So you see, it's like I do one thing and then life comes back to give me another lesson. But I, you know, by all means, it was an amazing experience. You know, everything that I learned, and it was just really great. And I also had the opportunity to work, you know, years later in Spain, in an architectural firm. So without before graduating, you know, so it was an intern. And no, that's also very interesting because then again, you know, it's a very local experience, you know, with professionals, you know, from in this country. And yeah, you're not as well, you're still a student, but in this experience, you're not a
With a
student,
new professional
working.
mindset, let's put it this way.
Exactly, exactly. So once again, you know, it was this other, again, great, wonderful experience, very welcoming. You meet so many people. People are so nice. That is one thing that I always say. At the beginning, it's not necessarily easy. Sometimes you arrive, you're completely lost. Like for example, when I arrived in Sevilla, because in Spain, that was in Seville, I didn't know, and I actually arrived in the days that they have the feria, you know, which is a big festivity in the spring. And unless you have been to Sevilla, you wouldn't imagine. Maybe you do know. It's something like arriving in Carnival in Rio.
Okay.
Imagine you arrive and you don't know there is Carnival. It's gonna be a shock, right? So it's kind of what happened to me. You know, so I arrived in Sevilla. I go to the office, nobody's there, and I'm like, okay, so did I miss something? If this is the date, you know, I did say whatever. Bottom line, right now I don't remember, but somehow, you know, I contacted them, they contacted me, and they're like, no, we're here in the feria, we're waiting for you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, and it was again this amazing experience, you know, that everybody's
Well, at
dancing
least you started with
flamenco.
the right foot, right?
No, completely, completely. But can you imagine? You show up, you know, after you know crossing the ocean again. You know, you land in this office and everything is like closed, and you're like, what happened? You know. So I end up in the feria. You know, this everybody's dressed so elegant. You know, in the costumes. You know, dancing, and I'm wearing trousers. I'm wearing pants, and they're like looking at me like, do you have like a you know a skirt along? And I'm like, no. So they actually took some pictures, and I'm the only woman, you know, wearing black pants. Everybody's wearing these beautiful skirts, you know, with their hairdo, and but bottom line, so welcoming. They're like, yeah, she's the foreigner. She just arrived, you know. Let's welcome her, you know. Give her food, give her something to drink, show her how to dance, you know. And so yeah, that was the beginning of my experience in Seville. What else can I tell you? Well, years later in education, because all of this that I'm saying is basically related to education. I did my master's in London, And I love London. It's the city, I guess, that I will live there. It's so easy for me to find myself in London. And it's an amazing place. And then talking about, the professional life, I did mention, in Seville, it was a practice, but I have had the opportunity also of starting businesses in 2 different countries, as an entrepreneur, first in Panama and now here in France, and yeah, it's not necessarily the same thing, but I must say that whatever you have done in the past will help you for whatever comes in your future, right? It's a little bit of an experience that you hold on to, but yeah, so the experiences in terms of education, professional, and obviously personal. As you were saying at the beginning of your question, it's like, what do you miss? Everything and everybody, because the thing about moving away is that you leave a little bit of your soul and heart, wherever you have lived. And it's hard, but at the same time, because you have done it before, those friendships and those who are family or become family will be there for you forever, and it's interesting how those friendships, they just stay, and
Ooh,
once you
that's
see them
that's
again, you pick up, just where you left.
That's so true. That's something interesting that you're saying. Even if you leave, because this is a common fear that expatriates have. Oh, when I leave, what's going to happen with, my friendships and the people that I have contact? But those who you really created a strong bond, they stay in your life somehow, right? They stay.
They do, but and again, for that to happen, you have to give them part of you as well,
True.
so uh, I guess what I'm saying also is that at the beginning you'll be like, no, I will not invest, my emotions into these relationships, because I'm only here for a year, 3 months, I don't know. But at the same time, if you don't invest, you will not gain, so it's the one thing that you give a little, you receive a lot, but it's tough, when you leave people and you look at them and you're like, oh, I'm hugging you and I don't know when I will see you again. And it happens, it's some people you will never see again, so there others you will just meet. All of a sudden you'll get a phone call from this friend and they're like, you know what, I'm in your neighborhood, whatever you're living now, right? And you're like, can we come over, I'm here with my wife or my dog or my friends, and you're like, sure, and then you meet again and it's just so random to meet these friends that come from the other part of the world that are meeting you in your new hometown. And that's insane, but it's amazing too.
That's true. That's true. And my next question is somewhat related. So, in all these places that you've been, what would you say was the biggest challenge or a cultural shock that you had? Tell us, a couple of experiences or fun experiences that you might have. Like this feria example was very cool. It was a very cool example.
Oh, it was amazing, and I must add, I was very lucky because when tourists come to the feria, they go to the tents that are built for the tourists. You know, they don't necessarily visit the tents or are invited into the tents of the people from the city. And I was invited, just, it just happened. I wasn't a tourist really. I was treated as a local because, the people in the office invited me to their tent. So again, it's one of those things that all of a sudden you are welcome, and oh, it's amazing and you really appreciate it. In terms of like shocking things, let's just say that one thing I have learned is not to assume, because whenever I assume something, it doesn't work uh, completely. So I think what I mentioned it to you the other day. Paris is amazing, is romantic, but it's not like in the movies. There are moments that it feels like a movie, and all of the sudden, the smell of something really bad passes by, and you're like, my movie moment is over. But
Plus, you have to do like regular things, like you have to go to the grocery, you have to do your laundry.
exactly.
It's different,
But for
right?
example, one thing that I loved in Paris is that I remember my school, because it was the time that I was doing the study abroad. My school was in point A, my home was in point B, literally walking 20 minutes. And it was a beautiful walk. It was a beautiful walk. And there was a bakery. And one thing you must say is that the French do know how to do their bread. So
Absolutely.
literally, I would leave the university, pass by the bakery, like the French people put the bagel under my
Under
arm.
the arm.
The interesting thing is that I will start eating the bagel. By the time I come at the baguette, I'm sorry, not the bagel, the baguette, by the time I come home, there's no baguette. So the movie part,
Gone.
exactly. So the movie part is that, yeah, I did have, my friend under my arm. So at the end, I just started buying 2 baguettes, So, okay, one for the road and one for when I'm actually having dinner, So things like that. But for example, one thing is that I lived, and I'm actually a Panamanian citizen. I lived many years in Panama, and I am Colombian, as I said, originally. And one thing is that you may say, because we share a history, Colombia and Panama, you will say, oh yeah, they're very similar. Not at, not at all. The society in Panama it's so, the differences are so small, but at the same time so specific, that is then, I guess, that when we assume and we're not careful, is that when we may say something that we shouldn't, or be misunderstood very easily, and same here I have felt, because I live in a region that is very close to Switzerland, so you're like, oh, the Swiss and the French, same.
The same, yeah.
Not at
And
all.
no,
Like,
yeah, and it's
not at
not,
all.
yeah.
Right? So it is like, and then again, it is like, and you will see it also in your country. Every country has regions. And even in regions, you have the villages or the cities, or the countryside. And people are different. They have
Here
different
in the
accents.
US, I see this a lot. It sounds almost like every state is a new country. It's so different.
It is. So again, it's one of those things that when you say, what have you learned? It's not that it's shocking, because at the same time, everybody has the right to be their own way. Maybe the one thing is just to be observant, right?
And
Of those.
open-minded, right? As you said, not assume. And as expatriates, and I talk a lot with the expatriates, we usually assume, right? We think that things are oh, it's obvious, or it is like that. And sometimes it's, as you said, it's when we get in trouble.
We do, because we assume, and we make a comment that, that is a statement, like a big statement, and all of a sudden it's like, whoops. And obviously we're not from there, so maybe something that is well known, and is so well known that they don't even say it, because everybody knows it, right? But you don't know it. You're not from there, so all of a sudden you're stepping where you shouldn't, and you're like, whoops, so. And this coming from someone that is at the beginning, I'm shy, but then I'm talkative, so but it's this thing, that just, making sure that you have this sensibility, again, not talk, talk to people, but it's actually the other way around. Ask questions, and
Yeah, that's an
observe,
awesome tip. Yeah.
what they're doing, like, for example, something that is very fun, that I find very, very nice, from the Swiss in this region that is close to the Alps, is that as soon as they meet you, they're like, hi, okay, so Olga, do you ski? And I go like, nope. So the first time I was like, oh, okay, this person loves skiing. And you know what? Everybody in this region loves skiing. So I was like, wow, okay, so either I learn how to ski, or actually tell them that I'm a nice cocoa chocolate body to have, once they come down from the slope, and I can do conversation and still get invited, to their weekend, skiing weekend, even if I don't ski. So it's the type of thing, that people are like, okay, you're fun enough, we'll welcome you, to our weekend, even if you don't ski.
So that's a good take. So I was going to ask you later about how to make friendships and how to make new friends and, you know, how to mingle with locals. It sounds like you're already giving a tip about that.
Well, I guess one of the things, I'm not a master at all, right? But is this thing that I guess if we are open, as you were saying, to learn, we will notice that there are things that are like common in the region that people like to do, that people like to enjoy. But I actually think that the key is that you know what you like to do. Like, for example, my latest example is that I like to draw. And I finally found a school that is not far away from home. And I actually just, one of my activities, a couple of hours a week is to meet this group to draw, and I'm still new in the group. So it's not that I have made friends, but it's the type of thing that you're like, okay, it will be it's going to be a nice group. Why? Because I like to draw. They like
And
to
people
draw.
there might have, you know, similar values and similar tastes, etc.
Exactly. So I'm not joining the group, let's say, to network or make friends, but at the same time, I do know that it's just going to happen, right? Because we are enjoying this activity together. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a conversation here and there. We're going to invite each other for coffee here and there. And then you're going to meet someone, from the region. So I guess it's that, it's not necessarily like me. I find networking extremely hard, when people are like, yeah, let's go to this event because it's a networking event. I'm not good at this, me taking my cards and just pulling myself out to say, hi, talk to me, contact me. Me, this is really strange, but if we have a topic in
Or
common,
informal.
it's fine, we'll find something to talk about, and at the end, oh, Tati, would you like my card? Yes, why, Olga? Why don't you take my card too? And that flows with me, but the idea of just going to a networking, I go like, oh, this is so weird.
Yeah, that's really weird. And that's so interesting. So now that you're talking a little bit about networking and you know our talk is converging about work, tell us. So you mentioned to me offline that you had some sort of, you know, a hard time finding the work that you really wanted in France. Now where you are living right now, and so talk to us a little bit about that, and you know how your current work came to be, how that happened.
Well, as you're saying, it took some time. This time again, it was another experience. It was different. We moved to France. My husband is French, and when we moved at the beginning, I must say, we were coming from Panama, and I was thinking that I was going to do a lot of work still with Panama. And as time passed by, I had less and less work from Panama. And I'm like, okay, I need to find more things to do, other jobs at work, maybe. And I started applying, to companies. And for the first time, really in my life, I didn't get any calls back. And that was very hard. I got extremely unstimulated,
Frustrated.
frustrated, as isolated. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Actually, the interviews that I had is because friends of friends actually put my CV on top of the list, and I was invited into interviews. But as a coach, actually told me at the time, they're like, look, the job market, usually how it works is that when a position opens, the company will look into the people within the company. And if it's not within the company, they will look from references from people from the company or the industry. And then at the bottom of the line is, when you apply online. And my reality is that coming, here, there are many little boxes that do not favor me, right? When I moved here, my French was not the best level. I'm an architect, so I still had to homologate, my diplomas. I was coming from being independent for a few years, in a small firm. We had a few good projects, but if they ask me, have you been in charge of more of $1 million project? I'll be like, no. But what about 600? But no, that's not enough. You see, so it's the type of things that all of a sudden you're not making the bracket, and it was frustrated. So for a moment, I was actually thinking, okay, maybe I need to do something else. Then I had the opportunity of other architects, actually from other countries, contacted me because they needed support for other projects. So I did have work. I did have things to do. But I was like thinking, should I do something else? Learn to do something else. And then I had the opportunity to do like a training to create my own company in France. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure if I should have done it because I was like, oh, I still need to learn more French, blah, blah, blah. But then at the same time, I was coming from being my own boss, I'm obviously with my associate, but it was a small practice. And I was like, yeah, this is what I have done before, so okay, so it's going to be another context, but at the same time, it's kind of the similar thing.
Similar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then at the end, I just did it, and I was surprised because I really had very good critiques, and they were, and at the end, the people that were doing the advisory, and they're like, yeah, go ahead, why stop, just go ahead, jump. And I'm like, okay. And this is actually how it started. But I was working from home for the first time, ever, and though I didn't needed it, I was like, I have had the experience of co-works before. So I actually looked for a co-work that is close to my home, because though I don't necessarily need it, because I do have a space to work at home, coming back to this idea of getting to know people in the area, I still wanted, to be a member of a co-working. And I've been very lucky. I found a co-working that is a great, amazing. People are, again, very friendly, very open. A co-working ambience is great because people do different things. So they're always curious about what you're doing. You're curious about what they're doing. It's okay to have a conversation, and ask around, how your projects are going or not. Oh, maybe you can call this friend of mine in person, so collaboration does occur, and I really like that. And
yeah, and that's a brilliant way to network. That's awesome.
because
That's an
again,
awesome tip.
it comes naturally, right? It's not the type of thing that you're like,
It's
God, this is
formal, yeah.
which is feels so strange. And I must say too, I actually joined a group of professional women, and which is present in many countries in the world, and they're present in Switzerland and in France, and it does help, because you meet, actually, after all the confinement and everything, we continue meeting online, but it's this feeling of belonging, as a loner as you can be, or me sometimes, because sometimes, I just don't want to see anybody. We need people, right? And we need to share.
And it's interesting that you're saying that, because a lot of expatriates say exactly this. What they miss is the sense of belonging, of finding their group, finding their tribe. So that's a good tip. So say that again. So you met with a women's group, a women's network group. That's
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do, and it's great because it's once a month. But because there are different sections, different groups, I actually meet, let's say, 2-3 times a month here and there, and it's great. You do end up again doing this networking, but in a very soft, passive way, because first you participate in meetings, right, and then as you become recurrent, because this is the thing, and I have seen it also in the co-working, and I have seen it in this group of professional women. Sometimes people come with this attitude of, hi, my name is this, this is what I do, and somehow they want to sell themselves, and then they never come back. So you're like, oh, okay, this person maybe was great in so many ways, but we never saw this person again, And then you have the people that maybe are timid, right? The people that don't talk as much, but because you have seen them over and over, either in the co-work, right, or in the meetings, and then you become curious about this person, and again, you start exchanging
conversation and questions, and
and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this person is amazing, and I really like this person, but it wouldn't be the one that you will pick, the first day, because either you were not being talkative, or that person was not being talkative, but it's because of the recurrent opportunity of seeing each other again, right? So that's what it is, with expats. I guess we're a little bit impatient. We want things to happen fast. And sometimes, we need to give a little bit of time, even if we're there for a few months or years, just
It
give it,
takes time.
give it
Yeah,
a
that's
time.
true. It takes time. So tell me, so you mentioned you open your, you had this training to open your company. So tell us, how did you get your first clients?
Well, actually, the first client was a friend.
How did that happen? Tell us everything. Tell us everything.
So it was a friend. So in terms of my studio, so I'm an architect, right? But with all the difficulties, let's say, of architecture, what happens with architecture is architects are responsible of what they do, right? So in many countries, there are many restrictions and codes, for who can practice and cannot. So to keep it easy, what I decided was to focus in the advice consulting, of projects that do not have to involve, taking down structures, So that way, when those projects do arrive, I'll just work with other people, to to develop this project. But for the smaller projects that happen very often, that people actually need advice, what do I do? I just decided, to focus into practical solutions. So as I was saying, I have never been working at home before, and I started thinking, and this was before the pandemic. I was like, there are many people working from home. Developing spaces to work at home, productive spaces, must be interesting. I have developed offices, and so I was like, this is a niche, that I would like to study, and actually started researching about it. And then the pandemic happened, and everybody's working from home all of a sudden, right? So I have this very, very good friend of mine uh, living in the US. And one day we're just talking. And I'm like, so how are you doing? And she's like, good, good, good. But I'm working crazy hours. My back hurts, da da da. We're talking. And seriously, I wasn't thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about my friend. So we're having this conversation. We hang up, and then I write him a message, and I'm like, send me a couple of pictures of your space, to see, what is it that you have done, and maybe I can help. And she's like, sure, I'm a friend, right? So she sent me these pictures, and I'm like, no, this is not good for you. So the next thing I realized, right, is that I'm writing a report. I'm making drawings, and I'm like, do this, do that, follow this link, buy this thing, da 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 da. And like a couple of days later, like really, I have a document, and I'm like, okay. So I did tell her, I'm like, look, I did this. Can I just send it to you, as a formal document, because as an exercise? And she's like, sure. She's my friend, right? Sure. She receives the document. She calls me. She's like, this is so good. This is serious. And I'm like, yeah, this is serious. She's like, so this is really what you're doing? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the idea of what I'm doing. And actually she followed everything that I did, that I suggested. She and what was interesting is that a couple of months later, I asked her, I was like, so how is your office going? And she goes like, game changer. And I'm like, okay.
Yay!
So it's again, it's this type of things, that you're like, you're in the right direction, but selling your services is not evident. This is not easy. But then again, if it comes, from the good intention, I do believe that if it comes from the good intention, it will be well received. And this is actually how it started. So since then, during confinement, for example, with this group of professional ladies that I was telling you about, at the beginning, everybody's locked down. What do we do? And I'm like, well, they suggested, to do some webinars. And I was like, yeah, I can actually do some webinar in advising you how to improve your home office. And many people started joining the webinars, even friends of mine, again, because, it was available. And yeah, and I started getting, consultations, related to home office. So
That's
that's
great.
how.
So since you're talking about, giving some tips about home office, Can you share some tips with our audience about how home office and how to make it more functional, how to make it better?
Sure. I guess the first thing to say is that your home office is a system. I call it a system, and I say system why? Because there's time. I know this will sound very philosophical, but at the end of the day, it's super practical. It's a space during time that involves you and others. And I say it like this because when you're working from home, actually your co-workers are the people you cohabit with, right? And your colleagues are the ones on the other side of the screen. So the relationships are different, so the environment works differently. And one of the difficulties is that people are finding it very hard to determine or clarify the boundaries, like
Absolutely. Yeah.
having private, professional life. But at the same time, if we think about it, this was happening from before. Like the moment we have an email and we have a mobile phone, you know, when you're with your family, you're still getting information from work. So again, things will keep on evolving. This is not the end of it. But we always need to question ourselves and what we're doing, in terms of boundaries and how can we improve them, And one thing that I must say is communication. I know that what I'm saying right now sounds very general, but seriously, that's what it is. If you tell people your intentions, they will be informed of what you're planning to do. If you have a busy schedule, and you tell your family members where you're up to,
This is what's happening today, or this is what's happening this week. Absolutely.
probably they will help you. If you don't tell them, one will come in, one will come out, mom, dad, and it's like, your parents, it is like all of a sudden, of course, everybody feels that they need mom and dad and their children or pets or their colleagues or their bosses. So it's this thing, it is like communicate, tell people what you're planning to do, when are you planning to do it, and number two, be ready because this may not happen the way you're planning, right? So plan B, plan C, and take time in between meetings, take breaks, take care of yourself. Things that, again, they sound so generic, but at the same time, is the one things, that we all forget to do.
Absolutely.
So in the terms of the home office, yes, I do suggest tables and desks and good lamps, and to have a clean background, to help you with your video conferences. But at the same time, it's a lot about managing your time, your space, and communicating with people.
Yeah, managing people's expectations. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to see. I say this a lot, but architecture for me is an experience within a space through time, and when you see it like that as an event, then you're like, okay, it's actually more than just tables and chairs. Imagine it's like a theater. It has a beginning, a climax, an end. It is like, and every moment of every day of your life is like this, and it involves, very material things, but it also involves people more than anything. So that's the important thing to take in care, to take into consideration.
Absolutely. And one final question about expatriation would be, what did all these experiences in other places around the world teach you?
I don't know. I think the earth is so big and rich, that people are, in general, very nice and kind. That if you are curious enough and a little bit open and you show them respect, people will also respect you and open their home to you or give you a good advice, or a good suggestion. I think I'm not done in terms of, no matter where I go, maybe even if we stay here forever, I don't know, I do feel that the world is my home. That is the one thing, my country will always be in my heart, but at the same time, the good thing is that I feel like home wherever my bag is. as I say.
It's
And
where your heart is, right? It's where you
exactly.
are. It's absolutely.
And being there, it is like one thing I have, and I have seen it because people do have homesick, they suffer the homesickness. It has happened to me a couple of times, particularly because they're related, to family losses or moments that are very difficult to live with. But in the daily basis, I enjoy where I am. And I do think that living abroad is not for everybody. Same as home office, maybe home office is not for everybody. So if you're not, what I'm trying to say is be happy where you are. If you're not happy where you are right now, maybe look for somewhere else, because if you miss home, go back home. If you want to leave, and experience, another country, go and do it, but I do believe, that your sense of I don't know, your spirit, your how do I say this, your motivation should be very clear in that sense, to really appreciate the moment and the present.
That's a good tip. I love it. I love it. And I truly believe that too, that we make our home. There's no, specific home. We make our home. It's where our heart is, and sometimes we feel homesick. That's true. But our home is where our heart is, absolutely. So before I move to the card that I mentioned to you, I wanted to talk about the hand gestures. This is something that I've been developing in the past episodes, and people have been liking it. So let me share with you a hand gesture from Brazil that we use there, and try to think something about Colombia, what or anywhere else that you figured out a very specific hand gesture. So, for example, in Brazil, sometimes when you are saying that, are you crazy? Are you doing something? This is crazy. Why are you doing this? Or, when you're making some kind of objection, sometimes you do like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? Are you crazy? And you do this kind of hand gesture. So what is something that you could share with us in terms of hand gesture?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe a couple of things. I don't know why, but since I was little, handshakes. Like I do remember people telling me, my dad telling me, they would be like, when you give a handshake, be firm. Don't squeeze the person, it's like, and don't be like this.
With their hands.
Yeah, the handshake says a lot. And I don't know if I give a good handshake or not, but I will always remember that. I'm like, your handshake. And I'm like, okay. And it's true. Again, I don't know if my handshake is good or bad, but when people give me a handshake, I do think about what it is that I am feeling, with that handshake. And now with the pandemic, that we're not giving any handshakes, I'm wondering if it's going to be the way, we look at each other, through the mask, through the eyes, but yeah, the handshake, I guess, is one thing that was told to me since I was little, and it has stayed.
And do you remember anything else, or something else comes to your mind?
Well, the other thing is that, I don't know, but this little finger means a lot in Colombia. Like when you, for example, when you're little, they're like, how old are you? One, like this is, I don't know why this is one. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5, is this one. I know that in other countries they count differently. And again, when I was little, because it's like, they don't do it anymore, but when people voted, this is in this finger is where you will have the ink, showing that you voted, right? So I don't know. In our culture, this finger means a lot. And again, the one thing they tell you when you're little is don't finger at people. That's a very bad gesture. The first thing that you want to do when you're little is like, pointing out at people. So I guess it's the power of this, the power of one. I don't know. That's what I will think about.
That's interesting. That's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. So now, how about we move to the surprise card? So let me tell you just real quick about this card. And for those who are here for the first time, when we created this card, the idea is to exercise our locus of control. So in every situation, we can see things as happening to us, or we can see things as we are in control, in the sense of there are things under our control. Even if there are small things, in every circumstance, there are little things that are in our power, in our actions to do. So the idea when I created the card, was exactly to, here is one set, is to, to have something to exercise. So to draw a card in every day and talk and see the topic, and, try to exercise that topic in a form to think about, in this subject, what are things that are under my control, right? So that's the idea. So let me share this card with you, Olga, and read it out loud for our audience, and then say anything that comes to your mind.
Okay, so the card reads, exploring the unknown brings out energy to create opportunities for learning and understanding. And the word underneath is knowledge. So I completely agree with that. I guess because I will never know enough. I know this is a well-known phrase that a philosopher once said, something like, the more I know that I don't know, right? And I guess that I relate to that, in the sense that, yes, each time a little bit of knowledge gives me a lot of comfort. It tells me also that I have done my homework, that I did what was in my control, as you're saying, to face a situation, or to inform myself, to try to make an educated decision. But at the same time, things may happen that, as we were saying, we may not control, but it gives me the tranquility that I did my part, and again, if it didn't go my way, I'm learning also something new, right? From this new experience, even if it wasn't as pleasant. So I do love learning. So I like that card very much.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, and I believe that too. I believe that, when you try to understand something, or you try to acquire more knowledge, you end up getting more confidence, as you said, because you feel more prepared. You feel that you're doing your part. You're doing something. So that's a good example. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, thank you. I love the card.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories, for being so open, and giving so many valuable tips to everyone. So I really thank you. I appreciate you.
No, thank you, Tati, once again, for this opportunity. And I don't know, it's to be an expat is amazing. I do know, as we already said, sometimes, there's a hard things that we go through, but I don't know, it's such an adventure. It's such an adventure. And I do hope, that those who are listening enjoyed our conversation, and yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Hey, I want to tell you one more thing. You are a global leader. The question is, do you have all the skills that you need to succeed? I'd love to help. I save my very best tips for my subscribers. Subscribe for free at coachingexpatriates.com. I know your inbox is sacred, so I promise I will send you emails that you will love. Whoa, that was super fun. I really enjoyed these talks, and I hope you do too. As always, I will leave links in the description below of everything we talked during the show. If you liked this episode today, please give us a like, share with your friends, and make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you can be notified when new things come up. Thank you so much for watching.